Well, Jan, welcome back for another episode of the Audacity Files.
Pleasure
Lovely
to see you, Jason.
you.
Pleasure.
I'm glad you're here. So there's been so much going on since we last met, but you've brought us some dots today for people to connect.
Yes, some dots. There's plenty more.
Plenty of dots.
And this has to do with dots during the Obama administration.
Right.
And obviously our mutual artwork here this is the Obama White House, where we have a collection of dots in one place. So we're going to sort through that today by doing something different. You and I are going to take turns reading the dots.
This is going to be the Crowdsource the Truth equivalent of Run DMC. So that'll be good. Where shall we begin, Jan?
And you could sing along with us.
That's right.
Dots, reportedly, and not necessarily in chronological order. What the sources are here were reported from other places, and not necessarily our opinions.
Right.
So if you would start us off.
Absolutely. The Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations were originally between only 4 nations: Chile, New Zealand, Singapore, and Brunei.
In 2008, President George Bush got the United States involved in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, negotiations.
Under the Obama administration, the Trans-Pacific Partnership became an integrated aspect of President Obama's and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's Pivot to Asia initiatives. After receiving complaints about the name Pivot, the initiatives were rebranded the Rebalance. The militarization aspects of the Pivot to Asia included weapons sales and gifts, forward deployment of U.S. military assets, and enhanced military-to-military exercises. All of the continuous admonishments of China and North Korea and resulted in a tit-for-tat arms race throughout the Indo-Asia-Pacific regions.
From the Obama promise, lobbyists won't run the White House video. While campaigning for office, Obama said, "I'm in this race to tell the lobbyists in Washington that their days of setting the agenda are over. They have not funded my campaign. They will not work in my White House."
I think it's interesting how he stuttered when he said that. From the Obama flip-flops on Export-Import Bank while running for office, Obama said, "And the Export-Import Bank that has become little more than a fund for corporate welfare."
In the New Republic article dated October 14, 2016, entitled, "The most important WikiLeaks revelation isn't about Hillary Clinton," it is revealed in an email dated October 6, 2008, from Michael Froman to John Podesta that, this is going to be long, folks. Do you want to scroll up so everybody sees?
Yes, I'm sorry. I've been following on this other.
Okay. Here we go. The messages go all the way back to 2008, when Podesta served as co-chair of President-elect Obama's administration transition team. And a month before the election, the key staffing for that future administration was almost entirely in place, revealing that some of the most crucial decisions on administration can occur well before a vote has been cast. Michael Froman, who is now U.S. Trade Representative, but at the time was an executive at Citigroup, wrote an email to Podesta on October 6, 2008, with the subject lists. Froman used a Citigroup email address. The cabinet list ended up almost entirely on the money. It correctly identified Eric Holder, emphasis, for the Justice Department, and so on. We'll continue to the next one.
On February 3rd, 2009, President assigns Eric Holder to serve as the United States Attorney General.
Can you scroll?
Yeah.
Okay. This is where it starts to get real interesting.
Yeah.
Eric Holder's 1999 memo helped set the stage for Too Big to Jail, Huffington Post article, June 4, 2013. In a 1999 memo entitled Bringing Criminal Charges Against Corporations, written when he was Deputy U.S. Attorney General, Eric Holder argued that government officials should take into account collateral consequences when prosecuting corporate crimes.
The April 14th, 2014 New York Times article, Why Only One Top Banker Went to Jail for the Financial Crisis, is quite illuminating, including the descriptions of the roles of Attorney General Eric Holder and Justice Department Criminal Division Director Lanny Brewer, each who eventually went back to work at the law firm Covington and Burling. And of course, we've heard rumors that Eric Holder is considering a 2020 presidential run.
I think that would be fantastic when you scroll up, and I'll tell you why. I think it would be fantastic. Because then we can bring out how we let all of the bankers off with small penalties instead of going to jail because of all of the malfeasance that led to the Great Recession. 10 million people foreclosure, they let them all go scot-free. But he had worked for a law firm that was known to defend banks. Really? He went back to that law firm. Let him run for whatever he's going to run, and we'll be able to get all this in the news.
Am I next?
I'll read this one. Eric Holder returns as hero to law firm that lobbies big banks, The Intercept, right. July 6, 2015.
Right. And then, of course, sorry, it's a lot to handle here. Reading, scrolling, managing the switcher.
That's quite okay. We're having fun, right?
Yeah. Okay. According to the February 6, 2016 Time magazine article, Hillary Clinton recruits Eric Holder for new campaign ad. Am I in the right spot?
Yes.
Holder, who served as a deputy attorney general under President Bill Clinton and in the Obama cabinet alongside Hillary Clinton from 2009 to 2013, touts his long relationship with her in the ad titled 25 Years. That's the amount of time she should be getting convicted for.
It's all right, don't make me laugh. On June 21st, 2013, President Obama assigns Michael Froman to serve as the United States Trade Representative, USTR, which is the government agency responsible for developing and recommending United States trade policy and conducting trade negotiations such as the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
November 4th, 2008, Barack Obama is elected president, and Barack Obama is re-elected in 2012. I must apologize to the Crowdsource community for my contribution to that disaster. The Obama Foundation was established in January 2014, something Charles has had quite a bit to say about.
And here we are. December 12, 2018, the Clinton Foundation provides members of Obama Transition Team a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, designed to establish greater transparency and predictability with regard to activities of the Clinton Foundation to the content of Senator Clinton's services as Secretary of State. Part of the MOU states, whereas the parties have agreed to set protocols that would apply to the Foundation's activities to supplement existing State Department protocols for managing conflict of interest and the appearance of conflict of interest, as determined the State Department's designated agency ethics official. I want to stop for a moment there.
Sure.
The appearance of conflicts were supposed to be taken care of as well. And there was nothing but clouded, as you know from Sunday with Charles and your discussions with Charles or Tell.
Right.
But has anybody spoken to the State Department's designated agency ethics official? Has anybody interviewed that person? Who the hell are they? Let's go on.
Yeah. Okay.
In the
first inauguration of Barack Obama took place on January 20th, 2009. I feel like we're having a Seder here, Jan. Keep going.
Thank you. Please don't do that to me again. Among the list of 2008 inauguration donors, the financial, insurance, and real estate sector contributed approximately $9 million.
You know, I think we do need to stop there for a second because, you know, a lot of people think Obamacare represented the government providing health care for people. It was a big insurance company sales pitch.
We can get into this real quick comment.
Yeah.
What started out was supposed to be healthcare reform related to people's healthcare.
Right.
The insurance industry, alongside with President Obama, made it the subject of health insurance reform. However that turned out, we can have a whole show about that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about people's health care.
Correct.
Let's go on.
Okay. According to the Sunlight Foundation, April 23rd, 2013 article, Obama's voluntary disclosure left out some big corporate checks. The 2013 Presidential Inaugural Committee omitted the names of two $1 million corporate donors, Boeing and Chevron, among others. According to OpenSecrets.org, Boeing's contribution was reported to be $1,005,283. They got to get that $3 in there.
On January 21st, 2009, President Obama issues Executive Order 13490, Ethics Commitments by Executive Branch Personnel Pertaining to Government Organization Employees, Ethics Commitments by Executive Branch Personnel, Government Organizations and Employees, Limits on the Role and Disposition of Lobbyists. This is basically his campaign to not have lobbyists influence the White House.
Right. On June 11th, 2009, Senator Chuck Grassley urges the White House to make transparent any ethics waivers and recusals. I know you're a big Chuck Grassley guy.
Not necessarily. But what's interesting, deeper in that article, it's basically Senator Chuck Grassley complaining that what Obama said he would set out to do didn't take place.
Well, that we all know.
Among many other exceptions to his own ethics guidelines, President Obama requests that Raytheon lobbyist William J. Lynn III serve as Deputy Secretary of Defense, and Ash Carter, who had also worked for Raytheon, serve as Secretary of Defense.
According to the Center for Responsive Politics website, OpenSecrets.org, the top 5 defense contractor 2008 contributors to federal candidates, parties, and outside groups were Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, and Raytheon.
According to the Center for Responsive Politics website, OpenSecrets.org, the top 3 recipients of campaign contributions from the defense sector during the 2016 presidential campaign cycle were Hillary Clinton at $1,100,711, Donald Trump $360,000 and change, and Bernie Sanders $350,000 and change. That's during the last campaign.
Yeah,
Do you remember Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump saying they're not taking money from the big corporations?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, we would expect Hillary Clinton to get all that money because of all the favors she did for the defense contractors.
Pay for play.
But I was real surprised. But this is verified through Center for Responsive Politics.
Right.
Shall we continue?
Well, on January 21st, 2009, Hillary Clinton was sworn in as Secretary of State under President Barack Obama, overseeing the department that conducted the foreign policies of the president until she resigned on February 1st, 2013. I don't know that many people recall that Hillary Clinton resigned from that position.
Yeah, I don't remember being invited to any parties.
Resignation party.
Hillary Clinton sets up an unsecured email server in the Clinton, New York home for use in her position as Secretary of State. And even though it may not make sense, this practice at the time seemed to be an okay government practice.
Now, wait a minute. Is that your editorial, that it seemed to be an okay government practice?
There were no government guidelines about that at the time.
Sure there were. It was mishandling of classified information if she put it on a server that wasn't...
They even added later that all of those things had to be preserved. This came later, after she left her position as Secretary of State. But we can dig into that deeper.
You're telling me that they didn't have a law on the books that said you can't store or transmit classified information on an unsecured, non-government server?
Welcome to the United States.
Wow.
Don't believe what I had to say just then.
We'll check that.
Let's verify it, okay?
We'll check that, yeah. On December 31st, 2015, the Washington Times reported Clinton advised to consider resigning as Secretary of State after Obama's Russia comments. Mark Penn, a key Hillary Clinton advisor, calls the hot mic moment about the stupidest thing ever said by a president in foreign policy. When he thought the microphones were turned off, Mr. Obama asked Mr. Medvedev to tell Mr. Putin that missile defense and other issues can be solved, but it's important for him to give me space, to which Mr. Medvedev replied in English, "Yeah, I understand. This is my last election," Mr. Obama said. "After my election, I have more flexibility." I think we all remember those comments.
Rarely discussed are the duties of Secretary of State.
Right.
We had a Secretary of State who was running for president, but we never discussed the duties. I don't ever remember this on mainstream media or conversations just about anywhere.
Right.
So I'm going to read through some of the responsibilities.
Yeah.
And this is from the Secretary of State website. Under the Constitution, the President of the United States determines U.S. foreign policy. The Secretary of State, appointed by the President, with the advice and consent of the Senate, is the President's chief foreign affairs advisor. The Secretary carries out the President's foreign policies through the State Department and the Foreign Services of the United States. Among other responsibilities listed, serves as the President's principal advisor on U.S. foreign policy, conducts negotiations related to U.S. foreign affairs, negotiates, interprets, and terminates treaties and agreements, ensures the protection of U.S. government to American citizens' property and interest in foreign countries.
On October 11th, 2011, Foreign Policy magazine, the article, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton states, "As the war in Iraq winds down," that was 2011, it was winding down, "and America begins to withdraw its forces from Afghanistan, the United States stands at a pivot point. One of the most important tasks of American statecraft over the next decade will therefore be to lock in a substantially increased investment, diplomatic, economic, strategic, and otherwise, in the Asia-Pacific region." That was only 7 years ago, well, 6.5 years ago, and look at where we are now.
A New York Times article headline on October 11, 2011 states, "U.S. troops to leave Iraq by year end," Obama says. I'm going to capsulize some of that. 2011, there were major pronouncements that we're going to be completely withdrawn from Iraq and Afghanistan. The arms manufacturers in the country basically balked about that and said, what's going to be our marketing opportunities? Lo and behold, the Asia Pacific.
Right.
Your turn.
That's a New York Times article headline?
According to
the Business Roundtable website, the Business Roundtable is an association of chief executive officers of leading U.S. companies working to promote a thriving economy and expanded opportunity for all Americans through sound public policy. I wonder if that includes the Americans that are deployed to war.
According to the International Engagement section of the Business Roundtable website, open markets for international trade and investment are essential for supporting U.S. economic growth and jobs. Business Roundtable supports policies that promote U.S. trade and investments and create a level playing field for U.S. companies competing in global markets.
The Business Roundtable and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, along with others, steering committee and coalition members, including defense contractors such as Lockheed Martin, Boeing, GE, Honeywell, Caterpillar, and financial establishments such as the Goldman Sachs Group, Inc., JP Morgan Chase, Citi, Inc., promoted their Trade Benefits America Coalition initiatives in order to promote the TPP and the need for Obama to have trade promotion authority.
According to the Center for Responsive Politics website, Open Secrets, the lobbying expenditures of the Business Roundtable between 2008 to 2017 were between $12 million to $27 million annually.
Wow. President Obama assigned Jeffrey Immelt to be the chairman of the President's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness, whose function was to provide nonpartisan advice to the President on continuing to strengthen the nation's economy and ensure the competitiveness of the United States, and on ways to create jobs, opportunity, and prosperity for the American people. While Mr. Immelt was still the chairman of General Electric, and Mr. Immelt was also a member of the Business Roundtable.
So where are we on the screen for?
Right here, President Obama assigned Immelt.
Thank you. President Obama signed James McNerney to be the chairman of the President's Export Council, which was the principal advisory committee on international trade, while Mr. McNerney served as the president and CEO of Boeing, while James McNerney served as the chairman of the Business Roundtable. James McNerney also served on the President's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness.
The function of the President's Export Council, according to Boeing, the Boeing company W. James Jim McNerney Jr., is chairman of the board and chief executive officer to the Boeing company by appointment of the U.S. President Barack Obama. McNerney chairs the President's Export Council, which operates as an advisory committee on international trade.
President Obama assigned Marilyn Houston to serve on the President's Export Council, while Ms. Houston simultaneously acted as President and CEO of Lockheed Martin and as a member of the Business Roundtable.
Hillary Clinton served on the President's Export Council.
Delivering innovative solutions for today's global challenges, 2015 Lockheed Martin Media Day. Remarks as delivered by Marilyn A. Houston, February 18, 2015. And this is in part of a much longer quote.
Right.
Our shared growth serves as a model for other countries and underpins our global free market. It creates jobs, opportunities, and progress around the world. With further progress on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, we see a relationship the U.S. State Department calls strong, mature, and increasingly interdependent, being made stronger and more viable still.
According to the May 9th, 2015 Defense News article, Lockheed Martin, biggest U.S. government contractor in 2015, the Pentagon's top 100 contractors raked in $175.1 billion in obligated contracts in 2015, down slightly from 2014's total of $177.6 billion. $2 billion is slight. According to government figures released this week, Lockheed Martin was the largest single contractor for the U.S. government in 2015, easily lapping the rest of the field with $36.2 billion. The next closest competitor was Boeing at $16.6 billion. The federal government's top 100 as a whole obligated $238.5 billion in 2015, meaning the Department of Defense represented about 73.5% of those contracts awarded to the biggest firms.
Marilyn Houston's March 15, 2016, Lockheed Martin Position for Growth with a Future-Focused Portfolio speech outlines their projection of growth in Europe, Africa, and Asia based on projections of regional conflicts. And that speech goes into that in detail.
America's Pacific Century, Foreign Policy by Hillary Clinton, October 11th, 2011. The future of politics will be decided in Asia, not Afghanistan or Iraq. And the United States will be right at the center of the action as the war in Iraq winds down. And these are the words of Hillary Clinton,
Yes.
of course. As the war in Iraq winds down and America begins to withdraw its forces from Afghanistan, the United States stands at a pivot point. Over the last 10 years, we have allocated immense resources to those two theaters. In the next 10 years, we need to be smart and systematic about where we invest time and energy so that we put ourselves in the best position to sustain our leadership, secure our interests, and advance our values. One of the most important tasks of American statecraft over the next decade will therefore be to lock in a substantially increased investment, diplomatic, economic, strategic, and otherwise, in the Asia-Pacific region. As Secretary of State, I broke with tradition, that's an understatement, and embarked on my first official overseas trip to Asia. In my 7 trips since, I've had the privilege to see firsthand the rapid transformations taking place in the region, underscoring how much the future of the United States is intimately intertwined with the future of Asia-Pacific. A strategic turn to the region fits logically into our overall global effort to secure and sustain America's global leadership.
The Obama administration has brokered more weapons sales than any other administration since World War II. That came from The Nation article by William D. Hartung. That was July 26, 2016. William Hartung is the director for the Center for International Policy's Arms and Security Project and the author of Prophets of War, Lockheed Martin and the Making of the Military-Industrial Complex.
The Clinton Foundation donors got weapons deals from Hillary Clinton's State Department, and International Business Times from May 26, 2015 published this table of Clinton Foundation donors and the weapons deals that they got. 17 out of 20 countries that have donated to the Clinton Foundation saw increases in arms exports authorized by Hillary Clinton's State Department. And this is a slide that Charles Ortel would definitely like.
Interesting to point out. There's many problems here, but Saudi Arabia, according to the Clinton Foundation website, donated somewhere between 10 and 25 million. They have a broad-based category, so we don't know the exact amount. But the weapons proliferation to the Saudis was really off the charts.
Right.
And Saudis are basically decimating the country of Yemen. That is off topic for a lot of things that we discuss here. We haven't got into the violence aspect yet, based on my research, Violence Incorporated. But this is something in the peace movement groups that we speak about a lot. That statistic right there, even though there's a lot of it. But we can go down to the next slide.
Well,
Yes?
before we get off of this Saudi Arabia thing, I also want to point out, I'm sure you know, and the viewers of Crowdsource the Truth know, that Bob Graham, former senator from Florida, and I believe he was the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee in 2002, delivered a report, a 28-page report that detailed Saudi Arabian financing and involvement in the planning of September 11th, 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center right here in New York City. And just 2 days ago, we did an interview with John Cullen, who presented, in my view, extremely compelling evidence that Saudi Arabian Air National Guard was involved in the assault of October 1st in Las Vegas.
I'm going to circle back, though, because the only intelligent thing I can comment about is responsibilities of Secretary of States.
Yes.
And the Memorandum of Understanding, which has said that Hillary Clinton Foundation would not even have the appearances of malfeasance. This is how you avoid that. You don't take between 10 and $25 million from Saudi Arabia.
Right. Certainly appears to be a conflict
that's how
of
you
interest.
avoid the appearance of it. But the Memorandum of Understanding was clear about that, to avoid it. There was no avoidance.
Well, if Charles were here with us, he would be certain to point out that a Memorandum of Understanding carries no legal bearing whatsoever. It is simply a note.
Yeah, and among the dots has to do with ethics in Obama's administration.
Right.
And the exceptions that were made. Hillary Clinton was one of the exceptions that had to be made. This chart is also very interesting. Defense contractors donated to the Clinton Foundation. Boeing, GE. I'm not very familiar with Goldman Sachs' particular holding. Honeywell, Lockheed Martin, United Technologies. Just to take a moment to remind the viewers. Boeing representative and Lockheed Martin representative on the President's Export Council.
Right.
GE CEO was the chairman of the President's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness.
Right.
All three were part of the Business Roundtable. All of these are members of the Business Roundtable.
So
let's continue.
pretty serious conflicts of interest, it would seem.
Well, here's where we get into a very serious issue, which you and I are going to be covering further. Weapons proliferation in the Middle East and throughout the entire Indo-Asia Pacific as a result of these interrelationships.
Right. So, Clinton Foundation contributor and guarantor information is available on the link that you've provided there, and I'll include this PDF in the description on the YouTube video when I upload this to YouTube after our live stream here. So our viewers right now on Periscope, Facebook, YouNow, the VK social media network in Russia, and the various other social media platforms that this video will be seen on, will be able to actually access the hot links in this PDF later. But in April of 2015, the National Center for Public Policy Research sent out the following two press releases entitled, "Boeing Refuses to Disclose Any Boeing State Department Clinton Foundation Email Correspondence." Today, the National Center asked McNerney to release any email correspondence Boeing officials had with the U.S. State Department, as the government's copies of at least some of those emails may have been stored on Secretary Clinton's private server and then deleted and bleach-bitted and smashed with a hammer.
The title of the next press release from National Center for Public Policy Research read, General Electric's Jeffrey Immelt says GE will not make public written communications with State Department during period when it made a major contribution to the Clinton Foundation, and then Secretary of State Clinton secured a $1.9 billion contract with the Algerian government. Can we go back to that other slide to see if Algeria contributed to the Clinton Foundation as well? One page back. Let's see.
Oh,
yes, they did. How about that?
I'll tell you, it's really amazing. But during the the Democratic Party debate on October 13th, 2015, Bernie Sanders exclaimed, "Let me say something. That might not be great politics, but I think the secretary is right. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails." To which everybody applauded. I couldn't believe it.
Fast forward to July 12, 2016, Bernie Sanders endorsed Hillary Clinton.
I have a serious question, Jan. Why does Bernie Sanders sound like the aardvark from the Pink Panther cartoons? Sorry, that's not a serious question. You don't have to address that. I'm just making light of that comment. So what do you think about all this, Jan? I mean, this is you come to the program here and you are always delivering stunning information that I don't hear anywhere else. I think I've said it many times that initially I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. I liked the idea of a politician who throughout his whole entire life had been on the right side of history in terms of the civil rights movement, in terms of arguing against, pro-war, big corporate financial sponsorship, but yet it seems like he was being entirely hypocritical, and now in the months and year since the election, he's just a Democratic sycophant, isn't he?
Well, I have my own tarnished point of view because not only do I have conservative business practices and conservative views of financial policy, I am also a hardcore peace movement activist.
Yeah.
And I see that Republican and Democratic blood runs the same on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So I really don't care if someone's from a red state or blue state.
Right.
But so I have a different filter than most people do. If someone takes money from a defense contractor, I already consider them corrupt. I don't even care if it's a little bit. That's my point of view. I'm not saying that anyone else should have a hard point of view like that. Bernie Sanders did a deal helped Lockheed Martin do a deal with Burlington Airport in Vermont to secure the Burlington Airport for the F-35 fighter jets that Lockheed Martin makes.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that the Civil Aviation Airport in Burlington, Vermont has got fighter jets on it?
F-35 fighter jets are being tested from there, thanks to Bernie Sanders' assistance and other people's.
Why would they do that and not use an Air Force base or some other military? That's a civilian airport, isn't it?
I have no idea why they did that. There were so many protests in Vermont about this that did not get out into the national media.
Yeah.
But people in Vermont were complaining that Bernie Sanders helped them that. His point of view was this is going to help with jobs in Vermont, or it's going to go to South Carolina and we want the jobs there. And yet, these things continue. But can we bring up that last slide about Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton again,
Sure.
please? At the bottom there. Let's discuss this a little bit.
Sure. Prestige in politics is as powerful and pervasive as its evil twin, money.
Now that's a quote that I came up with. I think that discussing money in politics is not sufficient because there's other persuasions in politics, which is prestige.
Right.
Kind of obvious from seeing that quote. And what I'd like to do next is discuss one more dot that we don't have written here on the page,
Right.
that we could add to the splotch on the Obama White House collection of dots,
Right.
which has to do with the WikiLeaks revelations where they obtained the Goldman Sachs speeches
Ah, yes.
that Hillary Clinton gave, which she refused to release the transcripts of. And I don't know if the audience is familiar with this or not, but there's a section of this that is relevant to the other dots that I want to read through.
Please do.
And if anyone wants to do a search, you put in a search WikiLeaks, Hillary Clinton's Goldman Sachs speeches. And there are 3 of them, and there's attachments to this. Which I also question if these were readily available for someone to hack into. Certainly other foreign governments were able to see these type of things. And nonetheless, some of this text is quite embarrassing.
Do we know that this was hacked or was this leaked?
I don't know.
But we have heard many people say, and it's certainly obvious, that if you have a homebrew Mac OS server in your bathroom, sophisticated operatives could hack that.
Yeah, I know people are going to argue with me about my viewpoint, but I set aside how it's obtained.
Right.
Differential for me as a researcher related to militarization issues, where I get my hands on something that verifies suspicions.
Sure.
So I'm going to read a part of this. Because I had everyone else, this is Hillary Clinton speaking to Goldman Sachs. Because I and everyone else, and I know you had Leon Panetta here this morning, you know we all had the Chinese, and she was referring to North Korea, continued to develop this missile program, and they get an ICBM that has the capacity to carry a small nuclear weapon on it, which is what they're aiming to do. We cannot abide by that. Because they could not only do damage to our treaty allies, namely Japan and South Korea, but they could actually reach Hawaii and the West Coast theoretically. And we are going to ring China with missiles.
Yeah.
We're not going to put more, we're going to put more of our fleet in the area. So China, come on, you either control them or we're going to have to defend against them. Now this, as you can see, is in June of 2013.
That's rather inflammatory if you're a Chinese person.
Which brings us in full circle. Hillary Clinton was getting paid, how much was it reported per speech?
Oh, 500,000.
I really don't know, okay? I have no idea.
She chuckles anytime anybody asks her about that.
I heard it was like 250, 260. I have no idea what it was.
Still
okay?
quite a lot.
Yeah, it was more than $30, so. To me that was a lot of money.
Isn't that true? Isn't she supposed to not take more than $200 valued items if you're a government employee?
Was she Secretary of State at the time? We'll look at that. But in any case, she's speaking to the financial sector about military engagement in the Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
Why? What interest would they have in that?
Buy a lot of Lockheed Martin stock, I guess.
Or any in the arms industry.
Yeah.
That's the conclusion that I come up with.
Yeah.
Not knowing that, because I have not interviewed her or the Goldman Sachs representatives.
Well, if you did, all she would say is, you know, I don't know.
So the questions that we're going to come up with and we're going to get into as we continue in our programming, how did China react to this?
Yeah, they had to hate it.
Because this is my guess. If whoever obtained the Goldman Sachs speeches,
Yeah.
certainly other governments were able to do that. And they read those things and they react to it. Because it's Secretary of State who advises about foreign affairs to the President of the United States, who went through all the Asia Pacific nations saying that we are going to sell and gift weapon systems. We're going to forward deploy our military into the inner circle of islands. And we're going to enhance military to military exercises. They get a hold in 2013 of that speech, they're going to react to it.
I would imagine that they would react to it even more strongly than they would a public speech, because the fact that it's so concealed sort of indicates that it's a little bit kind of inside baseball. And so, you know, something she would say on television that gets broadcast all over the world would be a more guarded and less revealing statement than something that she clearly had no intention of being for public consumption.
It's interesting, and I don't have it memorized, but there's emails back and forth related to this where it's contained, where staffers in the State Department or advisors to Hillary Clinton are commenting about these speeches.
Saying what?
That we're going to have to examine these statements against public policy, things like that.
That's her, she's got a public position and a private position.
True, and that came out of some of these type of discussions.
Huh. Dirty business, Jan.
So there we have some of the dots.
Right.
And I'm willing to wrap up if you are. We covered our content a little bit sooner, but that's all fine with me.
Well, you know, we could address some of our comments here on Periscope. People are saying this is a master global plan. 500 million would buy you a gold toilet seat. And we've got people who keep their servers in the bathroom and have rubber duckies with Arduino-based servers in them. That's a joke, of course, for the techies out there. So, yeah, I guess there's a lot of countries that are all on the same New World Order Agenda 21 page. What do you know about Agenda 21, Jan? Is that something that comes into your research? Okay. Well, I think that might be a good place for us to wrap up right now. Of course, the Audacity Files is an ongoing show that you and I have been doing. I think this is our 4th episode.
Yeah, I'm pleased.
You bring forward tremendous information, and you know, every time we talk about these kinds of things, it reminds me how, you know, if we're going to have a government for the people, by the people, of the people, those representing the people should not be paid by these gigantic corporations, because I don't know too many people that are receiving government contracts to the tune of 36 billion or whatever those numbers were, hundreds of billions. So, you know, that's part of the same thought process that I have here, where I am repeatedly stating our intention to avoid corporate sponsorship. I don't want Lockheed Martin coming over here giving me a ton of money and telling me what to say. I don't want Pfizer, Merck. I don't want Ford. I don't want the Spanish riding school or anybody who has a corporate interest in suppressing what we might have to say to be a financial contributor. I would much rather have the individuals in the crowdsource community, which, you know, Jan, before YouTube wrongfully pulled our live streaming capability more than 12 hours sooner than they said they would in a written statement that they had provided with their warning of a copyright violation, which I believe was an invalid claim on the part of the copyright holder, less than more than 12 hours prior to the deadline, they pulled our live streaming capability. So in my view, this underscores my intention to never have Crowdsource the Truth monetized on YouTube, and we're seeking to diversify the platforms that we use for streaming. But it's important that people who watch and value this show and other shows on Crowdsource the Truth, that they consider going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and becoming a sponsor, even for just $1 a month. We've got over 48,000 YouTube subscribers now, and they will be able to see this video when I upload it right after the live stream is done. But we're going to start branching out into some paid live streaming services, just so that we're not wholly reliant on YouTube. And the other thing that our viewers can do, if they want to sponsor the channel with cryptocurrency, I've got a QR code on screen right now, right here, that people can use. Just point your Bitcoin wallet application at this QR code, and you can send Bitcoin directly to Crowdsource the Truth. I know you don't get that into cryptocurrency, Jan, but Bitcoin has been, it lost quite a bit of its value. It's been hovering around 10,000, which is still quite a lot, but hopefully cryptocurrency will bounce back, and it's a good way for people to send payments. There's all kinds of methods you can use where they're fee-free and stuff like that, and we're going to be talking about that a bit more in the future. Was there anything else you wanted to share with us, Jan?
Yeah, I think it's very important that your subscribers keep you going, because there's going to be more exciting things coming on your various shows.
Thank you.
Sunday with Charles. And one thing that I'm bringing to the table.
Yes.
I started discussion with different non-for-profits.
Yes.
To see if we can work together to go to a Washington, D.C. court to ask a judge to issue subpoenas to Boeing and GE to release any correspondences, whether it's email or hard copy, or any of their records between their companies, Department of State, Clinton Foundation, and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
The so-called damn emails.
Because it doesn't seem to me that anyone in Congress is taking that initiative.
Yeah.
I doubt, like I said before, that those emails will ever see the light of day.
No,
I
they will.
I believe that they contain classified information.
Right.
And if they were wiped from Hillary Clinton's server, and they actually contain classified information, given their relationships that we went over with everyone today,
Right.
that will be absolutely astounding.
Right.
And if I accomplish that, and we actually get a court-ordered subpoena,
Yes.
I'm going to knock on Senator Sanders' door in the Senate building in Washington, D.C.
I will be there to live stream that with you, my friend.
Okay, we'll set a date, because it'd be quite exciting to do that. And I'll sit there in the hallway till he shows up. I think I know which the side entrance is in his office too. So it's very important that your subscribers keep you going.
Thank you, Jan.
Because hopefully we're going to have that trip to DC, right?
Yeah, no, I'll definitely do that with you. I look forward to that. I also want to remind people, Jan, that if they aren't following you on Twitter, they can stay abreast of your work by going on there and just following @ShowUpAmerica. That is Jan Weinberg's Twitter handle, and we need to get your Twitter following up there a bit so that more people can stay abreast of the good work that you are doing. Unless there's anything else you want to discuss, I know you've got some plans for a little powwow with our mutual good friend, Mr. Ortel.
Yeah, we have some planning to do. Related to my Twitter followers, I'm real pleased with actually my interactions with everybody.
Great.
The statistics are amazing. It's half and half progressive, half and half conservative. And we actually have good dialogue back and forth. I think that's real wholesome.
I agree. I think there's so many intelligent, energetic, level-headed people who are involved in the crowdsource community. And I always want to reiterate that it's not about crowdsourcing consent. I definitely want differing opinions, dissenting views, and all that kind of thing. What we try to avoid is the argumentative, you're a troll, you're a shill, this is false, that's false. We need evidence, we need, countermanding evidence and arguments that can be backed up by, statements, firsthand reporting, that kind of thing. So we look forward to more of that in the future. Jan,
Always
great
a
to see
pleasure.
you as
Always great.
always.
Thanks.
And we'll have you back soon. Of course, you know, we don't do Audacity files necessarily on a regular schedule, but this is our 4th episode and there'll be more coming soon.
More coming.
So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This episode will be up on YouTube in less than an hour for sure. And thanks everybody. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 3 for Sunday with Charles.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Jan.